Anna, welcome to the How to Be a Redhead show. We're so excited to have you on.
So great to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and this is a question we like to ask all of our redheaded guests. What was it like for you personally growing up with red hair?
I don't think about having red hair very often, to be honest with you. I grew up in a family with quite a few redheads, so I didn't really feel like a minority. And I was very fortunate as a kid never to be made fun of or bullied for my red hair. My grandfather, as sort of a fun fact, had such red hair and he had a very red beard in college. He joined some competition and he won the reddest beard competition. And I have the newspaper article from like the Houston Chronicle. That's where he went to college or something. So it was sort of something, there were so many of us in the family. I didn't really think anything of it.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that you felt so included at such a young age. Stephanie and I have such an opposite story of like no one having red hair, and we were so lucky to have each other. So that's really incredible that you grew up like that. But now you're the author of Interviewology, the new science of interviewing. And like we said before this, we are really career oriented at heart. And so you consult others on how to interview. How did you get into this? You've built an impressive following, over 2 million on social media. Wow. Congrats. So tell us everything.
Thank you. Oh, everything.
Well, we'll be here for hours.
Right. I'll fast forward. So previously I was in the corporate world as a director of talent acquisition, and I was loving my job. I hired 80% of the organization by the time I left. I created intern programs. I worked with hiring managers and job seekers and hired for everyone. And I realized that this is a very weird thing in our society, that we don't teach people how to interview. Your life depends on working at a good job. The money that you make can change your life. However, we're not giving hiring managers tools how to do this. Job seekers aren't really taught how to do this. Some business schools teach students, but really not very many. And so I quit. I went to the president of the company and I said, I have a dream. If I don't do it now, I'll regret it forever. I didn't have kids at the time. I had some money saved. And he looked at me and he was like, you've got moxie. And like, literally that's all I had, because I didn't have a business plan. I just had this idea. And what a weird idea that was. But there were no jobs like that in the corporate world. I could have stayed at the company where I worked. I could still be working there now. But there was no place where I could do this. So I had to make my own business. I had to create a consulting company. And in very short order, the department at Temple University, where I had been hiring all of my interns, the dean called me and said, hey, I hear you're teaching people how to interview. Why don't you come? You know what our students are doing right and wrong. Why don't you do it here? So that was just such an incredible opportunity. How lucky was that? Like I said, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And I did that for 12 years. And it was like getting a PhD in interviewing. I worked with thousands of juniors and seniors to teach them how to interview. I taught 3-3-hour interview skill workshops a week, thousands of mock interviews, thousands of resume reviews. And in the first 5 to 6 years, I have to say I was very, very cocky. And I was like, I know how to interview, do what I do, And then after about 5 or 6 years teaching my students, I got pregnant with my first child. And I started to wrestle with the idea, like, some of my students aren't getting this. And I hope all good teachers ask themselves this question, like, is it me? Is it how I'm teaching it? Why is this happening? And I had a light bulb moment that would forever change my career. I thought, I teach people how to do it this way. What if we don't all interview the same way? And that light bulb moment set me on a course. That was November of 2016. Set me on a course to collect research. And I realized that we don't all interview the same way. And I wrote a personality assessment. I went to Penn for psychology. And I was like, I bet I could write a personality assessment to determine someone's interview style and figure it out. And so for the next 2 years, I did that. And I iterated it and I tested it and I talked to hundreds of my college students. And then I created what is now the Interviewology profile. And instead of just this like textbook that I had written, I now had this customized report for each one of my students, and they loved it. And I was like, oh, maybe I have something here. Maybe people like getting advice that's tailored to them rather than people just saying, do what I do and you'll be successful. Because what I learned is introverts obviously interview much differently than extroverts.
Yeah.
So in creating this tool, then I had this framework, and then I created one for hiring managers, and then my business changed quite a lot. And I launched it in 2019. And then simultaneously, I had my daughter, who was born a redhead, by the way.
Oh,
wow,
so the redhead gene.
that's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I say that, though, with a little disappointment because she's completely blonde now. I don't know what happened. I was very excited to have a redhead, but
so when she was born, it was red, and then it slowly changed into blonde. Oh.
Yeah. Now it's like white platinum blonde. I don't know. Maybe it'll come back later. But anyhow, so I had my daughter, and then 3 days later, I launched my website. And then a year later, COVID happened. And I was like, oh my God, I had just gotten all this traction and my business was really starting to hum. And I was in lockdown with a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I thought, well, when other time am I going to be able to write a book? I always wanted to write this book. And now I had the research and I had the time. And I really thought I was going to do it in like 2 or 5 years. And so I wrote my book during my kids' nap times during COVID lockdown. And then I had a book, and I was like, well, I don't know how to sell a book. And I reached out to all these agents, and everyone ignored me except one agent. And she said, you'll only get a book deal if you have a lot of followers. And I was like, who has time for that? I've got 2 kids. I don't want to do that. What are you talking about? And like all good advice, I resisted it for a year. And then I was like, okay, I have this great responsibility to do this product. I really want to do it. So January 2022, I got on social media. And in 6 weeks, I had 233,000 followers.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, well, maybe people do need these tools and tips. And people are really hungry for interview advice based in research and science. And then from there, it just has gone like wildfire. And I got an amazing book deal with HarperCollins Business, which is the best nonfiction publisher in the world.
Yeah.
And my book came out a couple months ago.
That's wonderful.
Now, I'm wondering did you know how to do social media, or did you have a team help you, or like, were you doing it all yourself? Like, how did you do that? Because we know that when you're starting something, you're kind of doing everything.
Oh, I did everything myself. I've never, ever used a team, never used anyone to help me.
Love that.
I can attribute my success on social media to the fact that I had taught these things in a classroom setting and with corporate hiring managers for 12 years at that point, 10 years. So I had very much practiced, what I was going to say, and I was very good at it. And I'm a good public speaker. Now I was just doing it in front of the camera. But the first year on TikTok was definitely a learning curve because you have to really understand the audience and the appetite. Yeah. I really surged first on Facebook and then TikTok, and now I'm surging on Instagram. So they all have different appetites, but you learn a lot cutting your teeth on social media. I thought I knew how to deal with, rejection and deal with, comments. It's very interesting. So I've been doing it for over 2 years now, and you learn very quickly not to take things personally.
Yes, you do. You get thick skin. Stephanie and I have been doing this for 13 years. And I was listening to you, Steph. I know you were thinking the same thing. Like, I'm sure when you told people what you were going to do for a career when you first stepped out, they were like, you're crazy. And you can imagine what people had to say about us when we stepped out and said, we're going to start a beauty brand for Redheads. They were like, what? You're going to do what? And so I think it just shows that if you have motivation and you have skill and you really see the vision, that you can take it to that point where then now people are like, what a great idea.
Oh, so many people are like, oh, you're an overnight success. I'm like, an overnight success? I've been doing this for 20 years. I was like, there's no overnight success. I mean, I was teaching and working 6 days a week when I started my business. I don't know about you all, but I believe in the hedgehog concept from Good to Great, which is one of the best business books of all time, which is find something that you're passionate at and something that you can do better than anyone else. Mm-hmm. And I know that to be true about interviewing for me. I have a long history of doing it in the corporate world. And then I got out and I was a coach and consultant and trainer for so long. And it's just what I'm incredibly passionate about, because I do believe that your life can change in an interview, because my life changed in an interview. And I think that's what makes my social media content very popular as well, is I speak from the heart. I'm not like a huckster, like I'm not trying to convince someone to do something. I'm like, no, I truly believe this. And I've done a lot of research on it, and it's meaningful to me. And it's important to me that we teach people how to do this, because historically we have not taught people how to interview, and I want to democratize the process.
That's so cool. And I was wondering, is there such a surge in wanting to know about how to interview because post-COVID, like, don't you feel like a lot of people are second guessing what they're doing now? Like, they want to make a life change, like they're realizing life is short, and they're going off, and maybe I think a lot of people are deciding like, oh, I don't want to do this job anymore. I want to do something else. And they want to be able to be skilled, and they want to know how to interview to get these positions. I feel like I've noticed in the last 4 years, people are quitting their jobs and they want something new and they want something exciting, and they don't want to be doing the same thing all the time. So I was wondering if you're hearing that from people commenting, like that they're taking this advice that you're giving them and putting it to use to have a happier life.
I think that's always an undercurrent of why people want to do this. I always say that COVID was this global near-death experience for everybody. And when you come out of a near-death experience, you're like, wait a minute, am I living the life that I want? Am I working in a place that brings me joy? I mean, I myself was held up at gunpoint one time, like 13, 14 years ago. And I'll never forget that moment. I really felt like my life flashed before my eyes. And I asked myself, as the guy had the gun to me, I was like, am I happy with the life I'm living right now? And I sort of feel like COVID was like that for everybody, right? Remember early days of COVID, we had no idea how bad it could be. It was really scary. I think when you come out of that, you're like, I'm going to realign. I'm going to make sure that I'm living with integrity and doing the things that I want and love. I really, though, think that the majority of people come to me and find my content because we don't offer it. Colleges don't teach people how to interview. High schools don't teach people how to interview. And historically, interview skills were taught in nuclear families by fathers, because historically men were working, not women, not people of color. So the majority of people were left out of the workforce and not given these tools. And by me doing this, it's kind of like me telling the secrets and saying the things that historically were not taught, because you were kept out of the workforce. It wasn't really until the 80s when women and people of all of us were able to start really entering the workforce. And job interviews didn't start until the 1920s. So this is all a very new concept.
It really is. Yeah, if you think about it like that on a timeline standpoint. And it is crazy to think, because it's something that I don't really think about, how, as young girls like Adrian and I in our first jobs or whatever, we're just kind of thrown into it. And it's, our parents would be like, okay, go do that interview. And then you just hope for the best after, I guess, what you're taught on a sense of, like, I don't even know. I mean, because Adrian and I is our
public speaking, I guess. We had like a public speaking class, but I mean, we really didn't have any training when it came to
that's exactly it. When you think about it, it is kind of shocking. And I have 2 little ones too, and they're 1 and 3. And now that we're having this conversation, it's something that I'm thinking about when they get older. I want to make sure that, yes, public speaking is something that they work on. And also, yes, interviewing, because maybe as parents, like our parents didn't think, oh, I wonder if Adrian needs a few tips on, or Stephanie needs a few tips on how to interview. But it is kind of, it's shocking that it's not taught. And are you seeing, though, throughout the last few years that it's slowly being taught, or not at all? Still not at all.
It's still not being taught.
No, because the societal system still exists, which is the patriarchy, and a lot of the issues that work against being more open-minded to, the corporate world and opening these filters up. Like if you don't know the right answers, oh, it sucks to be you, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That's the underlying belief and system, is that you have to know this. Well, how would you know if you weren't taught, and what if you didn't have a nuclear family or a father or an uncle to teach you the ways of the corporate world? So no, and here's the other thing. Hiring managers aren't taught how to interview. So it goes both ways. 90% of hiring managers are never trained to interview.
They just read off a script a lot of the times, right?
They probably just Google it. Or more than anything, they just have a conversation.
Yeah.
If there's a click, to see if they can get to know you. This is not a date. This is an interview. And a lot of corporate hiring managers are just feeling just as lost as job seekers.
Yeah, I actually just saw something the other day, and it was a college student, and it's like they're in like physics or doing something in science, geology, whatever they were doing. And they were like, I actually wish I was learning how to interview, how to pay taxes, how to balance my checkbook, like all of those life skills that you literally leave college. And like Stephanie and I went to University of Miami. We were not taught. I used a degree for so many different things, but I was not taught how to do so many things that would have been so useful in life. And so I can understand why you are so successful. And we're fascinated by the 4 interview styles you've identified in your book: charmer, challenger, examiner, and harmonizer. How can understand these styles transform someone's interview approach? Because I'm sure anyone who's listening right now is like, okay, what can I do?
And what am I?
You have, and you have these 4 styles.
It's a lot like, love languages or strengths finder, right? I really feel strongly in building up your self-awareness, because a long time ago, I asked myself, what are my great students doing really well in interviews? They have really great self-awareness. They know themselves. And what I wanted to do in creating this tool was help people better understand who they are. How do you get someone to see you as qualified? Charmers want to be liked. They make a connection through telling stories and being likable. Challengers show that they're value and show that they're qualified. They want to be respected and heard. They ask a lot of tough questions. They are challengers. They look at an interview like a cross-examination, where charmers look at an interview like a performance and they're the star of the show. And then we have examiners, and examiners look at an interview like a test that they are either going to get right or wrong, pass or fail, hired or not hired. And examiners are more quiet, and they're very professional, and they don't go into an interview wanting to be liked like their opposite, the charmer. They go into an interview wanting to just get it right, wanting to be seen as qualified. And then lastly, we have harmonizers, which is the opposite of challengers. And harmonizers look at an interview like a tryout for the team that they want to join, and that they want to adapt, and they're very collaborative, and they'll tell people what they want to hear, right? And they'll be very quiet, because it's all about like you and the team and the department, and they have a really hard time owning their successes and talking about themselves. So that's an overview of the 4 styles and how it works. And what I found in my research is we're much better, like anything, right? When we really know who we are, and we can really be confident and feel really good about ourselves. And there's a lot of overlap here with being a redhead, right? Like owning that thing that makes you unique, owning the fact that you're a charmer, challenger, examiner, or harmonizer. It's not about pretending to be something that you're not. And that's what old interviewing advice told us to do. Pretend something you're not, memorize these perfect answers, tell them what they want to hear.
Right.
It would be like me saying, I have green eyes. It'd be like me saying, I'm going to like make my eyes look blue for this interview. You can't do that.
No.
The same way that you can't change your interview style, because it's based on your personality. It's not something you could just like, okay, I'm just going to turn into a harmonizer today. You can't do that. Just like I can't not be a redhead.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the hiring manager side, is it, because when they're filling a job, are you finding that the 4 interview styles also pertain to them? Like, are they looking for with the position, are they looking for a challenger or examiner based off of the company and the position that they're trying to fill?
So great question. So if you are a charmer as a job seeker, you're also going to be a charmer as a hiring manager. Again, your personality doesn't change, right?
Oh, okay. While you're interviewing. Okay.
Right? So as a hiring manager, I am a charmer as a hiring manager or a job seeker. And what I found in my research is what we know to be true. We are all biased to our own style. So I'm going to like charmers more than anyone else because they speak my language. They understand, we get each other.
Right.
Hiring managers are notorious for hiring people that they like, that they click with. And that's often where our biases come from. They come from our preferences and our styles. So it's helpful for hiring managers to understand their interview style so they can understand what they like, who they're drawn to, and then conversely, why it's really hard to hire your opposite. For me, it's very hard for me to hire an examiner. But every time I have, I've been very happy because they can do things that I can't do. They think differently, and we need that.
How long does it take you to know what a person's style is when you're talking to them? Are you like, as a professional, are you like within 5 minutes, or you're like, oh, they're an examiner? Or
I clock it pretty quickly because I've been doing it for so long and obviously discovered this. And, it's important to me to always be thinking about it because I used to make, and I'm still guilty of this, like we all are, I used to make really snap judgments about people. And now, since writing the book and doing this research, it's made me much more open-minded. So instead, I try to tell myself, it's not that I don't like them. It's like that they're different.
Yeah.
And like, I just have to think, like, sometimes I do play a game with myself. Like if I'm at a restaurant, I'm like, that server is a harmonizer. That server is a challenger. Like even when I'm watching TV, I cannot do it. It's terrible.
Redheads, have you heard?
We aired on ABC's Shark Tank, episode 14, season 15. We are busy developing products and continuing to grow this incredible Redhead lifestyle brand.
Check out our mascara and eyebrow products in red hot shades, hair care, merch, lifestyle items, and so much more. Redheads, we can now rejoice.
Finally, there are products for us.
Use code podcast to get 15% off your next purchase. Shop at shop.howtobearedhead.com. Wow, that's so interesting. I'm loving it. So let's say a redhead is in an interview. They want the job. I'm sure that there's biases and expectations when they first walk into that room or they're on a Zoom call, whatever, because they have red hair before they even speak. What advice would you give to navigate such perceptions from others? And what advice do you give, for anyone who maybe looks different or stands out?
The hiring process is full of biases in our society. If you are over 50, 55, if you're a person of color, or especially if you have a disability, the process is going to be much more difficult for you. It takes a lot longer to get a job. It takes longer to get a call back. It's very difficult. For women, we have a different set of biases going against us and are often asked very inappropriate interview questions.
Oh,
are
not
you
surprised.
married? What does your husband do? Type of, questions like that. So I don't, I would say on the whole, there's really not much you can do as a job seeker, just knowing that you're up against this, other than knowing that you're up against it and needing to apply to more jobs and needing to know that this is a possibility. Interviewing is a numbers game. Here's a great scientific research study done by scientists out of Chicago and Boston, where they set the same resume out. And they had one resume with African-American sounding names and one resume with Caucasian sounding names. And the resume with Caucasian sounding names got a call back or scheduled for an interview after 10 applications. And the resume with African-American sounding names took 15 or 20 applications before they got a call back. That's implicit bias, and it's throughout the hiring process. So I don't know how hiring managers might necessarily feel about redheads. That I don't think has been studied to the same degree. But of course, we all have biases, and it's unfortunate. And it would be ignorant for us to say that just, don't worry about it and keep going. No, it's very possible. I mean, people on social are always asking me, I'm over 50 and what do I do and how do I navigate this? Or people with disability have, I mean, it takes them 80% longer to find jobs.
Wow. Wow.
I know.
It's shocking in 2024. I was thinking too, as employers, Stephanie and I both, I feel like we're always interviewing other people. So I'm really listening to everything that you have to say, and I agree with everything you have to say. And I think what I did like when we were going through your reels on Instagram is you said that you do not share personal information on a job interview. I'm actually very careful to share any personal information to this day with any of our employees. I just feel like I always try to keep it professional. I always want them to know that I take it very seriously, and I don't want them to think that we're friends, because I feel like that might blur the lines in terms of being an employer and being an employee. So I'm very careful. So when it comes to a job interview, though, you say that you shouldn't share your personal advice. And why do you warn against doing that in an interview?
Because they're going to use it against you. Like, for all the reasons I just said.
Yeah.
Why would you go into an interview and say, I got 2 kids and my husband's a doctor and we live blah, 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 blah. Why would you say that?
Yeah.
I mean, especially as a woman.
People do, though. I know people do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People. One of my most common pieces of advice on social media is when someone says, when you're asked in an interview, tell me about yourself, do not make it a person. It's not. I mean, it feels personal the way they ask you, but it's about work. We want to hear how you're qualified.
Right.
Tell me about the jobs that you've done. Why do you want to work here? Don't tell me about your hobbies outside of work. And hiring managers, if you're listening, you shouldn't be asking people what they do outside of work for fun. It has nothing to do with how they're qualified for the position. It just leads to biased decision making. Oh, I don't like that. She plays, pickleball.
Right.
I hate pickleball. Whatever.
Yeah.
Hiring managers have all these strange biases and they're going to use it against you.
So what happens if you're in an interview and someone asks you that? Oh, what do you like to do for fun? What should your response be if they know, maybe they've following you and they're like, Anna said on Instagram not to share personal. So what should your comeback be?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, instead of, if you were a challenger, you might go right out of it and be like, I don't think that's an appropriate question. So let's talk about blah, 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 blah. Some people do that. I'm more diplomatic. I'm a charmer and I want to be liked. So I would just change the subject. I would say something else, or I would be like, I would say something that I'd be comfortable sharing with them that I think that they would be impressed by. And then I would move, the conversation.
Okay.
If someone asked me, what do you do outside of work for fun? I would be like, listen, I don't really have any hobbies. I'm type A. I work all the time. It's true.
That'd be me. That would be true.
Would be your
That would be me. I just like to work and challenge myself. And
yeah. And it's also a great interview answer. But what makes it great is that it's true. So I wouldn't say that because, I heard it on a podcast and that sounds good. Don't do that. But, great interview answers comes from mining your soul and really thinking deeply about who you are and what you want and how does it sound in a professional context. I've had people ask me, what does your husband do? When people Google me, it's like, I think it's the second or third result, Anna Papalia husband. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? And it's 2024.
Yeah.
All the time.
Oh, that is so annoying. As if what is he doing to be able to pay for you to have this hobby?
Yeah.
Because no one takes what you do seriously. That's how we deal with that all the time. Stephanie says that most of the people at her daycare, right, Steph, where your kids go, or what they think that she's a stay-at-home mom because she has a flexible schedule and she's working 80 hours a week.
Yeah, they text me. I find this very interesting, actually. It got brought up this past weekend. I hung out with 2 friends that children also go to my kids' daycare. So that's how we've all met. And every time that there's something comes up with, oh, we ran out of wipes for your daughter, your son peed on his shoes, there's been a bunch of things the past few weeks, they text me and they say, can you please come in the next few hours? There's been 2 instances with my 2 friends that they actually go into the office, they come in and out of work with business suits on. They've never been texted. And I think that is so interesting when I get blown up on my phone. And Adrian and I had a very important Zoom with a bunch of people that we're working on a project with last week, and they were blowing me up. And my friend,
because they think that you're at home twiddling your thumbs.
Yeah.
Because you're doing something outside the box and don't have a business suit on.
And I thought that was so interesting. I was shocked. I asked my two friends, they never text you? And they were like, no. They leave me a voicemail. I call them right back and they say, okay, we'll just see you during pickup. I'm like, they want me to jump over hoops to bring an extra pair of shoes for my son when it's 4:00 in the evening. And I'm like, I'm going to be there in 1 hour to pick him up. But yeah, it's very interesting. But I'm coming like disheveled. My hair's a mess. I don't have any makeup on. And then when they see me in the afternoon, once I like get myself put together, I think they're like, oh, hi, Miss Stephanie. And I'm like, yeah, it's me. But back to the career, I was shocked when I found out that I just had the conversation this past weekend. And
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So Anna, what are your top 3 tips, let's just say? What are your top 3 tips for anyone who's interviewing?
It's really one tip.
One tip.
If I had a silver bullet, which is the reason why I wrote my personality assessment, and like I said before, I say it all the time on social. An interview, in the most basic sense, is a set of questions about you. The more you know yourself, the better you'll do. Do not go into an interview as a hiring manager or a job seeker thinking, I'll just wing it. I don't want to sound too scripted. I want to have a conversation. That never goes well, ever.
Okay.
You're in an intimidating boardroom with an executive asking you a bunch of questions about you. An interview, according to the EEOC, is a test. You are the subject. You are the expert on you. And if you don't know how to answer questions about yourself, you're not going to do very well. It's very simple. Why should we hire you? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? You're the only person that can come up with those answers. I can guide you. You can, I guess, put, the question into ChatGPT and come up with some AI answer, but that's not going to be a good answer. The only person that can come up with great questions as a hiring manager or great answers as a job seeker is you. There's no silver bullet. And the more you do it, the better you get. And that's why I tell people all the time, you can follow me on social, but like the best thing you can do is record yourself on your phone and watch it back. That I just asked you, because that's like having a mock interview. You don't have to be in a real interview to get better at it. You don't have to hire a career coach. I started making a lot of this content where I was like, here's some questions, pause the video and record yourself and play it back. And I'll ask you questions kind of like a mock interview. It's the fastest way to get better. But people don't want to because it's uncomfortable. They don't want to watch themselves. They think it'll just be easier to just show up and fall flat on their face and bomb the interview. You don't have to do that. Just practice.
Yeah.
And I did.
No, it is so hard. It is so hard to watch yourself.
Yeah.
It is.
I know. And I was thinking about beauty because we're a beauty brand for Redheads. Do you ever get asked, oh, I don't know what to wear to an interview, or should I wear a red lip? Should I wear my hair down, up? I mean, I just think that's something through the interview process, right? The night before, or maybe a couple days before, even weeks, that person's thinking, what should I wear? How should I look?
Well, just like in all of life, there is a beauty bias in hiring, of course. So I advise everyone that they should look their best in an interview. If you don't wear makeup normally, I don't advise you to go out and buy a ton of makeup for the interview. Like, again, it would be like, don't pretend to be something that you're not. If you never wear high heels, don't wear high heels to the interview. You'll look like a drunk baby giraffe, like wobbling around. Like, don't do that. It's okay to wear smart loafers, and you don't have to wear, a dress. You can wear pants as a woman. Those things are all fine. I think what's most important to understand is, like, again, who you are. How do you want to brand yourself? And is it in the context of your industry? So
right.
If you're interviewing in corporate or finance, you better be wearing a navy suit, okay? But if it's other industries, they're more flexible. You can get away with a lot more things. You need to know, are you a graphic designer? What's cool to wear in an interview is different than interviewing for a risk management position, for example. So I think taking those things into consideration, who you are, what makes you feel comfortable, what makes you feel really professional, and then of course, what works in the context of your industry. That's what you should be asking yourself. And from there, could you wear a red lip in a corporate interview? You might want to tone it down just a little bit because corporate is very conservative.
Right?
So natural is usually the best. But you know, I live in Philadelphia, and Anthropology and Urban Outfitters is a huge, has their headquarters here. I mean, you can get away with wearing just about anything on those interviews because it's retail and it's fashion and it's fun and really like a trendsetter. You couldn't wear any of that to a corporate interview.
Wow. You know, I was just thinking too, when we were on Shark Tank in February, when Stephanie and I were deciding what to wear and how to present ourselves, I mean, it was like the biggest interview of our life. You know, we had to go out in front of like all of these, famous people and pitch our idea about how to be a redhead. And Stephanie and I had really in-depth conversations about how we wanted to present ourselves. And at first we were going to wear like these, they had like shoulder pads and it was hot pink, but it was a dress. And
fuchsia looks great on redheads, by the way.
Right. Yeah. So we ended up wearing like fuchsia bright pink pantsuits because we felt like that was powerful. We wanted to look powerful, but it was like, we had a conversation of like, as two women, should we be walking out showing our legs, and like looking like, for lack of a better word, like sexual, like, should we be walking out? And we were like, no, we don't want to give that message. Like, we want to give the message that we're powerful, like we know what we're doing. And I think if we did like one thing right, it was that we were just ourselves. And at the end, everyone, told us like, you guys did such a great job because we were so authentic in ourselves. But we prepared, just like you said, like we prepared for months and months for just that 45-minute interview opportunity. And I think that's why we ended up doing so well. And if we didn't prepare, and I don't know if we wore something different, I swear, I think those little details would have given us a different result.
Sorry, Anna, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, this is again back to some of the biases in the interviewing process, especially for women, that you even have to think of how am I going to look sexualized in this process. I'm making very professional content on social media, and I could not, the things I could tell you the comments and the direct messages I receive would make you blush. It is unbelievable. I have never made an interview. I mean, one time I danced on a conference room table, but like other than that, like, I'm always very professional, and it doesn't matter as a woman. It's just what happens if you look a certain way, if you act a certain way. I've gotten very good at being able to turn it on. And like when I do that, I attract more people, right? I know how to do it. I know how to act. I know how to smile. I know how to do this thing that attracts more people. And when I'm not in the mood, I shut it right down. When I'm with my kids, I shut it down because I don't want to attract that level of attention. And as women, we have to be very careful. I mean, we all know that, right? Like walking to your car dark at night, like it's much different. I was walking someplace with a male friend not so long ago, and he's like, oh, let's go this way. And I was like, I'm not walking down a dark alley. And he's like, you're with me. And I was like, that's true. Okay, I'll go with you. But like, he's like, you never go this way. And I was like, no, I'm a woman. No, I would never walk that way. So we think about all of those things like, are you going to show your legs, and how are you going to present yourself? And it's very common in an interview too. You have to weigh all of that.
Yeah, I think it's a secret for success and being able to, get the job or to get the position or get whatever you want to get. Because there are so many ways to interview. It's not always to just get a job. It's like what our experience on Shark Tank, or it's a variety of. I think just having those skills can help you in so many varieties in your life. Wherever you want something, it's how to get it, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's a balance. I think one of the mistakes people make going into an interview is thinking that the only way to win is to get the job. And an interview should be a two-way street. You should be interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And I think you can nail an interview by deciding. I think you can nail an interview by not getting the interview. because we've all been in situations where I'm very good at interviews. I've gotten almost every job I've ever interviewed for. And, doesn't mean that's good, right? Then you get stuck into companies that you shouldn't have worked for if you had just interviewed them better. I mean, it applies to dating. It applies to pitching for business. It applies to everything. I'm a charmer, but I wish I had more challenger tendencies because I'm too preoccupied with getting people to like me and facilitating that good feeling in the interview that I forget to challenge people. I forget to ask the tough questions. And I've gotten much better at it now that I've been an entrepreneur for 13 years. I've had to really ask people tough questions, which I would normally never want to. I want to just have a good time and make a connection and have people, we all like each other. This is fun. But you all know as business owners, you can't do that. So I tap into different aspects of my personality now that I know these interview styles to make sure that I'm making a better fit. I'm hiring better, consultants that work for my company and whatnot. I've made major mistakes in the past because I haven't drilled down in those moments. I haven't asked really great questions because I've been more concerned about, let's just get along. Let's have fun. Let's enjoy this.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask too about eye contact because Adrian talking about Shark Tank, and of course, it was months ago and that we filmed, but I will say I left and my contacts were so dry just from not really blinking a whole lot as much, but also the eye contact that we gave. Adrian, I don't know if you feel the same. I don't think it's something that we really talked about after, but
we've always had intense eye contact with anyone we're talking to.
Exactly.
Not even thinking about it.
Yeah. But that time that we were in the tank, I've never given such eye contact to these people. So I was just curious if that's a question that you get and it's part of interviewing is eye contact because it's very important.
It's extraordinarily important. That human newborn babies prefer eye contact. Everyone does. Now there's a whole case and, there's very many channels on social media about neurodivergent people and an inability or a lack of eye contact makes different impressions, which is true. The other thing that's very important in interviews is smiling, which makes you look really happy and friendly, and you make me happy. So that makes you feel happy that I'm in your presence. And then third is your body language. What do you do?
Yeah.
The last thing you should ever do is put them in your lap. It makes you look submissive and weak and not confident. Put them on the table. Own your side of the table. Use your hands up here rather than in your lap. See the difference? You can't see my hands, but you can see what it did to my shoulders.
Yeah.
Whole different thing.
Yep.
So eye contact, smiling, and put your hands on the table. I make tips like that all the time. It's so important. Your nonverbal body language is 80% of the impression that you make in any human interaction. So you don't even have to say a word. If you're smiling, if you're making eye contact, and you have positive body language, people will think that you're confident, which is awesome. If you're really great at coming up with interview answers, but you're super nervous, then you just have to consciously practice smile, sit up straight, and make eye contact. Now, that can be easier said than done for some people. Some people struggle with eye contact. Then don't look directly in their eyes. Look at their forehead. Look at their nose. Look somewhere. You don't have to look right into their eyes if you're not comfortable with that. But it makes people feel more comfortable. In addition, on a Zoom, I'm talking into the camera lens right now. It's different if I'm looking at myself. You see the difference?
Right.
That's not eye contact. This is eye contact in the Zoom world.
That is,
I know.
That is,
what great tip.
That is so helpful. Yeah. I feel like, Stephanie and I that morning before we taped, Steph, whatever you had written down, it was smile, confidence, relax.
Yeah.
And those were our three things that we had to tell each other, to just go out there and relax. And the producers told us, if I can give anyone advice, it's just to be confident. And we were like, oh, we got this then because we were so confident.
Yeah.
And we had fun with it. I think that's part of it too. And I think a lot of the times, and especially in an interview, people will give you the opportunity if they believe in you, just from you believing in yourself, you putting it out there. I believe in myself. Then they're like, yeah, I believe that they're going to do a good job.
So you probably can't tell me, but how did it go? How do you feel about your performance? And
Oh yeah, we aired in February.
Oh, Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We aired February. We'll send you
16th.
the link. So if you have Hulu, you can check it out.
I do. I'll watch it tonight.
So yeah.
Hopefully you think that we did a good job.
How do you felt like it went? How was your performance? Like,
yeah,
it was great.
It was really great. We got a deal with Mark Cuban.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And we had and I think it's from what Adrian said, we were extremely confident. We know our business inside and out, and we're sisters. So it's very natural for us to talk and not talk over each other. I kind of finish her sentences and vice versa. And we knew every answer. We were so prepared. So it was a really amazing experience. But yes, I think confidence, the producers, as Adrian said, they were saying, don't, put your shoulders up, posture, and stand there with confidence. This is your business. You know it inside and out. And yeah, I think that really,
we were super aware, I think,
for success.
Yeah. What you said in the beginning, like we were super aware of ourselves, and I know I can come off really intense, and I'm lucky because Stephanie and I are doing this together. So I don't know if you've ever had people who are like interviewing together. I don't know if I don't know.
That in the corporate world.
Right. But I knew that Stephanie was going to be like more of the,
I said a few jokes.
Yeah, she's more of like the funny. She makes them feel relaxed. I was like very, like me. I was very type A, and she's very type A too, but just a little bit more jovial. And I don't know. I guess we just felt really comfortable, and I was like, "This is our moment." I mean, we had been planning and working for 13 years to get to that point. I felt like I didn't want to have any regrets, and I think that
yes
might be a good tip for someone going into an interview. Like, I didn't want to leave. You have that one shot. Like Stephanie and I always joke, like one shot, one opportunity. Like
from Eminem. Yeah, and that's so important that you said that.
Yeah,
because I thought I don't want days go by, weeks go by, and be laying in bed thinking, should have done that, could have done that, I wish I did that. So I kept thinking that in my head beforehand.
Me too.
There's one thing I want to leave and be like, that chapter's behind us, we nailed it. So I think that really, again, set us up for success, Adrian, because and it is a performance a little bit, it's TV and it's 8:00 on Friday. So, you have to kind of not act in a certain way, especially in the beginning with your pitch, because it is an acting experience in the beginning. And then you get down to the business side of things. But yeah, Adrian and I we were visualizing us that night out to dinner, cheersing with a glass of wine and cheersing for success. So I think having that, Adrian, which we did. We
did. Yeah, we did. We did a great job. And I think too, if I could say this, and Anna, maybe you'll agree that I'm so happy it happened. We're in our mid-30s, and I'm so happy that we've had all of this life experience behind us. I feel like we performed better because we're a little bit more mature than we would have been 10 years ago in our mid-20s.
Very true.
I was grateful for that. I'm grateful that that Stephanie had just had a baby 2 months before and was like out there, and like we were strong and prepared. And I was like, oh, I'm so happy I have age on my side a little bit more than I would have 10 years ago. I was thankful for that. And I think as we get older, we're getting better and better at being and talking in front of people, and just like an interview, they were asking us questions that we didn't know what they were going to ask. And we just knew that we had to do the best that we could answering the questions. So I really feel like, even though I haven't interviewed for a job in almost 15 years, I can really understand where people are coming from when they really want something, and then they do in a way. Steph, you're right. They need to perform and be prepared.
I don't think you should discount the level of preparation that you went to and how well you know your business. I mean, all the other things we're talking about is important, but if you haven't mastered that, and with it comes wisdom, which comes that self-awareness we're talking about, and that comes through. And whether you get the deal or you don't, when you can answer questions confidently and you know them, those facts might not be what the hiring manager wants, but that's okay. If you don't get this interview or this investor, you'll get the next one because you'll find someone who's the right fit for you. And I think it all comes down to that level of preparation and really understanding yourself and knowing, guess what? I'm not going to be for everybody. And that's a good thing. And that comes with age and wisdom. Like, this is what I can do, and this is my personality. And sure, wouldn't it be great to say, I get an offer every time I interview? I guess not really. If you're just telling everyone what they want to hear, then you're not going to get great offers. Especially when you get older and you figure out who you are and what you have to offer, you can be more picky. And I think it's important to do that. And I think it's important for all of us to remind ourselves of those things. And you really wanted this, and you nailed it, and you got what you wanted, which is incredible. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And congratulations on everything that you have, put out there in the world. We're so thankful for your work too. And just thank you for coming on the How to Be a Redhead podcast, because we really, really loved talking to you. When we were going through the call sheet, I was like, oh, I love this kind of stuff. And I could just tell that you were awesome. So it was so nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that I'm in the Redheaded club. I really don't think about it very often. So when I got invited, I was like, oh yeah, I had to really think, what is my life different because of a redhead? And I was trying to think of ways that it was, and I appreciate the opportunity to meet you. It was so fun.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.